Welcome back to The Source of the Rings, where we look at the signs, codings, and real-life inspirations behind characters in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Per request, for this video we are going to be analyzing the King Under the Mountain himself, Thorin Oakenshield. Born in the 2746th year of the Sun in the Third Age to Thrain II, Thorin was thrust from his home in the Lonely Mountain by Smaug the Dragon at the age of 24. In exile with his younger brother Frerin and younger sister Dis, Thorin fought across Rhovanion in the War of the Dwarves and Orcs. During the Battle of Azanulbazar, on the same battlefield where his brother fell, Thorin, injured, grieving, without a shield, took up an oak branch to defend himself, and drove back the forces of Azog. From this day forth he was known as Thorin Oakenshield. Following his father's imprisonment and death at the hands of Sauron, with the key to the back door and the map of Thror, Thorin resolved to reclaim his home, the dwarven kingdom of Erebor, and oust Smaug from the Lonely Mountain. Gathering 12 other brave dwarves from across Middle-earth, as well as the help of a certain wizard and hobbit, Thorin Oakenshield began his quest to reclaim his throne. The events of The Hobbit unfold, in which Thorin successfully navigates across Middle-earth, rescues an ancient elvish sword, forges a peaceful relationship with Elrond, slays goblins, resisted interrogation, and led the dwarven peoples in the Battle of the Five Armies. Ultimately, Thorin was slain, but while wounded he managed to speak some of the best lines Tolkien ever wrote. So, that's his story. Let's see his physical description, shall we? Thorin, at the time of The Hobbit, being 195 years old, has a white beard. He wears a sky-blue hood with a silver tassel, and upon reclaiming Erebor he dons a gold-ringed coat and a red jeweled belt. Being a dwarf, we can assume he's not super tall, meaning the sword he wields, Orcrist, which was made for elves, would undoubtedly be a long sword in proportion to his body. He also carries a silver axe, and is a talented warrior, singer, leader, and adventurer. Now, let's get into coding. Probably the most well-known use of coding in the Lord of the Rings, beyond Old English being used for the Rohirrim, is that the dwarves are based, at least in part, on Jewish people. You've probably heard this before, and without a doubt, on surface it seems anti-Semitic. But let's evaluate in what ways Tolkien based dwarves on Israelites, and how adaptations have manipulated these bases for less savory means. First of all, Khazd-dûl, the traditional dwarvish language, is based on Hebrew. It is structured like a Semitic language, and even in practice is a language used in private by its practitioners when they are abroad. Tolkien invented many languages for his world, including Quenya, which is similar to Latin, the language of the Valar, Valarin, which is reminiscent of ancient Babylonian, and Rohirric, which is most like Old English. Tolkien also, in a personal letter, likened the dwarves to Jewish people, although he didn't say that they were based on them. His points of similarity that he notices are that they are both diasporas, learning to speak the languages of the lands that they inhabit, but maintaining their own traditions. The concept of being itinerant also shows up throughout his works, as both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are centered and feature, respectively, dwarves trying to reclaim their homelands. But I've also seen people say it was straight up racist for Tolkien to give the Jewish coded characters big noses and tiny hats, make them often drunk and always rude. But here's the thing, he didn't. Dwarves aren't described as having large noses, and the fact that adaptations have used animation and prosthetics to give them ones is on the makers of the adaptations alone. Likewise, adaptations that portray all dwarves as irrational elf haters mistakes the relationship that was written in the texts, for the case of making the dwarves a laughingstock. One place, though, where I will say the coding becomes questionable or even downright offensive is in the case of greed. Thorin is ultimately interested in the massive wealth possessed by Smaug, and while it is his, and while wanting a dragon's treasure is far from unusual in fantasy fiction, this is soured by the comparisons to Judaism. I'm not going to try and defend this at all, as I think it's pretty disgusting. I will say, though, that it seems Tolkien changed his mind on why dwarves mine. That's mine, M-I-N-E. Before writing The Lord of the Rings, as in The Two Towers, Gimli reveals that dwarves mine to show the beauty of the natural world, and to reveal its artistry, as well as practice their own. Later in his life, Tolkien began to rewrite The Hobbit, and given as it seems he recognized that he put some anti-Semitic tropes in it, I suspect he may have changed a few things with regards to Thorin's lust for treasure, for the better. Well, now that that's done, have we settled on what Thorin was inspired by? Yes and no. I agree he was inspired by Jewish people and culture, but as previously said, both dwarves and Jews live in a diaspora. Thorin is very much a dwarf of Erebor, on top of being a dwarf. So what's the coding of the dwarves of Erebor? Well, Erebor is east, like very far east, as in the humans that are coded as Asian, the Easterlings, are as far east as the dwarves of Erebor. So if the people from this far east are seen as Eastern Asian, wouldn't the dwarves be as well? There's more. The Lonely Mountain is, well, lonely. It doesn't belong to a mountain range, and it is snow-capped in spring, meaning it is likely over 3,000 meters tall. There are a lot of mountains that fit this criteria, but as one both this tall, this solitary, and located east of England, I can think of only one widely popular candidate, Mount Fuji. And again, there's more. Around Mount Fuji, though admittedly not inside of it, Jews fleeing persecution set up settlements in the Edo period, much like the dwarves set up a kingdom in Erebor. As Erebor is not the original homeland of the dwarves, I think it's safe to say that with both location and coding, it isn't meant to be the Israel of Middle-earth. There's more. Here's an illustration by J.R.R. Tolkien of Erebor, complete with a cute little drawing of Smaug the dragon. Now, it's been noted before that Tolkien's illustration resembles Japonisme, an artistic movement of the early 20th century in which European artists were inspired by traditional Japanese artwork. And now, there's more, one last time. In Edo period Japan, warriors often went into battle with long swords and armored hoods. Thorin, in both historical circumstance and physical description, resembles an Edo period Jewish-Japanese warrior. Though there is certainly no confirmation that Erebor is somewhat Asian, and even less Japanese, there is a suggestion that Tolkien at least appreciated Japanese interpretations of The Hobbit. Tolkien sent a copy of the Japanese translation of The Hobbit, Hobbito no Boken, complete with illustrations filled with imagery found in Japanese folklore, to his close friend, Father Hugh Maycock. We don't know if he loved the illustrations, but seeing as he went off on illustrations that he didn't like, it's safe to assume he at least didn't mind them since he didn't bring them up. And that's part of why I feel comfortable doing this series. Tolkien was admittedly far from a non-racist man, but he was relaxed with different cultures seeing themselves in his works, as long as they kept the personality of the character the same. Did Tolkien see Thorin as a Japanese Jew? Maybe not, but there are similarities in his character that allow people from around the world to identify with this displaced dwarf seeking to reclaim his long-lost home.